hottest technologies in networking, and I'm going to kick things off by we have three subjects we want to address, certainly, and then we have a more open-ended about other technologies that we all should be watching. But the first area is going to be wireless. The first question I'm going to ask the panel and kick off the discussion will be to John from Cisco about that. The first thing I want to ask you, John, is I've been attending Cisco Live, and I noticed that the enterprise networking group is now intent-based networking. What's that all about? But then also in terms of wireless, it's a really, really hot topic, more so than ever, perhaps. And I know you're really excited about what's going on. So if you could talk a bit about what we should be focused on, that'd be great.
Sure. Let's see. So first, you asked about the change from enterprise networking to intent-based networking. What happened about 6 years ago, we started looking at what are some of the key enterprise use cases we need to solve in the future, and that's what led to what we now call intent-based networking, which we did in campus for wired and wireless, across WAN, across data center. And originally, we were building those as separate solutions and then started integrating them together. Last fall, we decided it's better to bring all of these together into a single business unit, because in that way we can create better integrated solutions for our customers. And that's what led to this name change, this change in organization, as well as this name change that you've noticed. It's funny because people in networking know what intent-based networking is. Mansoor knows all about it, right? Many people know all about it, but when you talk with others, it's a little bit of a surprise. I think Mansoor has a book he's going to share in a few minutes with us. So that's awesome. Yeah, so for wireless is incredibly exciting right now. I'm very excited. I know Bob's very excited. Many of us here are. Two things that are really special, I think, that are happening now. And I'll talk about Wi-Fi first of all, because we're all using Wi-Fi. I'm using Wi-Fi right now. Many of the people online are probably using it to listen. Well, Wi-Fi works great, but slowly, because so many of us are using it, the bandwidth's the spectrum's getting congested. One of the major things that the Federal Communication Commission, the FCC in the US has done, has opened up the 6 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi, for unlicensed, which means we can use Wi-Fi 6 in the 6 gigahertz band. And that's awesome because that's 1,200 megahertz wide of spectrum. It's a humongous amount of spectrum, and we believe it can open up a whole new set of applications and so forth. So that's really exciting. Another big problem that I think all of us have faced with Wi-Fi is just getting on the Wi-Fi network. At work, Wi-Fi works great. At home, Wi-Fi works great. But if you go to an airport or a restaurant or so forth, they ask you who you are and you have to sign in and so forth. And that's cumbersome. And also, even when you get on the network, it may or may not be secure. So it's a bad experience both for you as well as for the venue owner who owns the Wi-Fi network. So there have been many attempts over the years to try to solve this problem. In my group, we started looking at it and we realized that there's both technical and business issues why it hasn't been solved before. So we tried to make a solution that worked for both. And we came up with something that's called Open Roaming, which is currently being standardized by the Wireless Broadband Alliance, WBA. And this allows automatic and secure onboarding on a Wi-Fi network. Another big thing that the WBA just announced like 10 days ago, so this is really hot news, is an effort by, as they call it, 31 pioneering companies. This is the first set of companies which are part of this, and the 31 of them, to create a single global federated Wi-Fi network. And to put this in context, whenever we travel today throughout the world and we turn our cell phone on, we're able to get on the cellular network really easily. And as long as we're willing to pay any roaming fees they charge, we can get on. Historically, you couldn't do that with Wi-Fi. What they're trying to do with this ecosystem for Open Roaming is to allow you to go anywhere in the world and be able to easily and securely get on a Wi-Fi network. And I'm happy to talk later if there's questions about how that works. But these are some things I'm very excited about. And I know my colleagues have other things they're very excited about too.
Super. Yeah, Bob Friday. I know that you're quite focused on the wireless environment as well. Do you agree with John? Do you have other things you'd like us to be thinking about?
Yeah, no, I said, for me personally, like John said, I started my wireless career in the early 80s when the unlicensed wolves first came out. And so I have to really thank the FCC for my personal fortune because my whole career started on this unlicensed spectrum rule. And the 6 gigahertz, they just released another gigahertz of spectrum at 6 gigahertz. And that's going to, probably inspire another whole new round of innovations. And I think when we look at Cisco's 2019 DNI data, what that really shows is that 70% of all internet traffic is on some wireless network, and 50% or more of that is on some Wi-Fi network. And what I've seen over my career is I've watched Wi-Fi go from kind of a nice to have, back in my aerospace days, to a must have, when we saw Intel put Wi-Fi into laptops. And that's when, Wi-Fi became a must have in the enterprise. And I think what we're seeing right now is a paradigm shift to where Wi-Fi and wireless is really becoming business critical. And I think that is a big shift I'm seeing in the market right now. We're starting to see enterprise customers actually putting robots onto these networks, or they're putting customer mobile apps onto these networks. So I think we're seeing that where our whole society is going mobile. I think you're seeing our spectrum regulators respond to that, and they're responding to it with that, with 100 years of spectrum regulation. What their response is really is get more unlicensed spectrum. And we're starting to see shared spectrum, right? CBRS starting to come into play. So we're starting to see that, become a bigger part of the enterprise play. Yeah, so for me personally, I have a lot to thank you. I send the FCC thank you letters every year now.
Great. All right. So before we leave this topic and move to the next, Kevin or Mansour, anything you want to add to this discourse on the wireless side of things?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think the discussion on Wi-Fi is great, but the other huge innovation that's happening right now is in the world of 5G. And there we're not getting new spectrum. We just need to use the spectrum that we have more efficiently. And to do that is a tremendous amount of technology involved in the baseband codecs. So new type of modulation schemes, new type of forward error correction, really, really heavy lifting from a compute side. And that's where companies like myself come in with NVIDIA and the GPUs. We're doing software-defined radio, what we call Cloud RAN for 5G. We actually just introduced a new blog today that we published on a technology called 5T for 5G, because to build out a scale-out platform, you actually need to build something that's highly distributed, and it's software-defined and hardware accelerated. And that's what we do on the networking side, because to do this, instead of using regular appliances, which are sort of fixed function, that make you go climb up the radio tower when you want to change your radio algorithms and replace a appliance, here we can do that in software. But to do that, you need really precise timing, something on the order of 20 nanosecond synchronization between the nodes. And so we've done that inside of our networking, and we work with lots of partners, including folks like Juniper and Cisco, to deploy that out into the market, and Apstra obviously as well on the IBM. So we think there's tremendous opportunities, not just on the enterprise, but 5G at the edge. I think Bob mentioned some of the things that are happening with robotics and all of the edge computing. So wireless is going to be a huge play there, and latency is critical.
Just maybe a quick question. Kevin, you think 5G is actually starting to incorporate unlicensed and licensed spectrum? I see some sense for 5G kind of starting to encompass everything now.
Yeah, I think the jury's out there. It's trying, and that's the great thing about unlicensed. And we'll sort of have people out there doing that. The more nimble and adaptable and the faster you can get to market, the more likely it is you'll succeed in that unlicensed space. We'll see what happens there. I think the jury's still out.
Maybe just one comment I'll make is, as we see Wi-Fi becoming a first-class citizen, and of course we all know the importance of Wi-Fi. To me, there are two themes that I see, and the Wi-Fi coming to this prominence is kind of driving this as well. One is a multi-vendor. Right, so as we know now, there are so many great offerings, Wi-Fi offerings, best of breed offerings from multiple vendors, And so, we see enterprises very often choose one vendor for Wi-Fi that is separate from, let's say, the vendor that they use for their SD-WAN or their data center or their campus switching. And so more often now, what we see is environments that are inherently multi-vendor. And when, for example, with what's went on with COVID, you need to quickly make changes, pivot. So multi-vendor is key, and then management of this multi-vendor environment through software it becomes key as well. So having the ability to having software that is capable of essentially managing the provisioning, the policies for those multi-vendor environments becomes critical. So I'd say with the rise of Wi-Fi, we're seeing an acceleration of the importance of software and the importance of multi-vendor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'd add, I think ultimately, right? I mean, I think people just want to be connected to the internet. I don't think the average person cares whether it's cellular or Wi-Fi. They just want our mobile operator to do the best they can to keep us connected with whatever spectrum is available.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it was interesting. We work with lots of operators, and one of the things that we observed in the March-April timeframe that they were talking about a lot was there was no huge spike in mobile broadband usage, and that's because everyone was home using Wi-Fi and their fixed networks, and so it was quite interesting. And their issue was more about traffic management and shifting it and locations and whatnot, and not a huge spike in the use of mobile broadband, and that's for obvious reasons. And I think a bit later we're going to address this topic of private LTE and 5G and where that fits in as a key networking topic. But for now, let's pivot to the second